Hi, welcome to this episode of In the Garden. I'm Joyce Hochbrunn, Master Gardener, and my co-conspirators here are Tanya Vasek and Debbie Koharski, also Master Gardeners. And today we're going to talk about some of those garden myths you hear. We're going to see if we can separate the fact from the folklore.
Joyce, I'm going to ask you your first question.
All right, bring it.
All right. Trees should be planted so the soil in the top of the pot is level with the surrounding soil.
Depends on how it was potted up at the nursery or the tree farm. If it was potted correctly, that's fine. And how do you know if it's potted correctly? You should be able to see a root flare or a trunk flare where near the very base of the trunk it should be wider. And the first main root should be either right at surface level or just barely below the soil surface. If it's not, you got to do a little digging and very carefully kind of remove some of that soil from the top. We planted one once one year. We got down, I think we took about 6 inches off the top before we got down to the root flare. So check it. You gotta look. You don't. If it's going in the ground and it looks like a fence post or a telephone pole, it's planted too deep, and that's going to lead to either rot or stem girdling roots, where the roots are going to circle around and grow around the base of the trunk and literally choke it off in about 15 to 20 years. So that's one sometimes.
Okay. Adding rocks, gravel, or pot shards to the bottom of a pot will improve the drainage.
That is false. What it actually does is it reduces the depth of where your plant roots can go and brings the saturated soil closer to the top of the plants. So if you're adding it, so when you water it, you're just bringing that water up and you're decreasing the amount of soil that you have available. To solve some of these problems, if your drainage holes are too large, you can use a piece of screen to block the hole, or one piece of a pot shard or something just to block up that hole. To improve drainage in plants, you can take your soil and add vermiculite or perlite or coconut coir to the soil to kind of mix it up, make it a little bit more coarse. If your pot is too big and you're trying to reduce space, there's a method called pot in a pot. So take your big pot and put your smaller pot inside of it. And then therefore you're not creating, and what they call it is a perched water table. You're just increasingly making the soil level higher and higher, so it's not, it doesn't help in drainage is the back thing. That's definitely a myth.
Okay, Joyce, dish soap, is safe to use on plants.
That one is a no. I know everybody tells you to get out the Dawn, but Dawn and all the other dish soaps are detergents. Detergents are made to cut through wax and grease, and plants have a waxy cuticle. So when you use a detergent on them, you're destroying that cuticle on the plant leaves. Much, much better to just use an insecticidal soap. You can buy it fairly reasonably. You can buy the concentrate and mix your own as you need it, and it lasts for several years, unless you're using it all the time. But no, dish soap will harm your plants. So use neem oil or use an insecticidal soap, which is made from natural oils and fats, mainly potassium based, and it's mild on plants.
Okay. Deb, pine needles acidify the soil enough to harm nearby plants. Is that true?
That is a myth.
Okay.
Pine needles, while they have a low pH when fresh, as they decompose, the soil microbes and everything neutralize So it's not having any effect on the soil. If you have plants that are struggling under your pine trees, it's not due to the needles, it's mostly due to the amount of shade or the root competition, not the soil. There's actually a lot of benefits for using pine needles. Normally they're free. You've got them around your trees, readily available, and they will conserve soil moisture, suppress the weeds, adding soil nutrients, moderating helps with the soil temperature, and keeps plants clean during heavy rains. And they tend to stay more, that they're looser and not as tight as sometimes if you use wood mulch, it kind of compacts. These stay kind of light and airy, but they don't, they don't have,
Acidify them.
yes, and they don't create a crust like some mulches do. So it's actually beneficial to use them.
Speaking of mulch, Joyce, here's a good one.
Bring it.
Wood chips. Wood chip mulch ties up the soil nitrogen. Is that true?
Only if you're mixing it into the soil.
Okay.
When it's laying on top of the soil, you might have just the very interface right where the chips touch the soil. Might tie it up a little bit for a short time, but that's not happening down in the root zone of the plants. So, no, that one is false. Go ahead and put the mulch on, 2 to 4 inches.
Okay. Here's another one. Speaking of mulch again, this is kind of new, newer mulch, I should say. Recycled rubber mulch is environmentally friendly and non-toxic landscape option. It's kind of new, this is kind of a new thing. What do you think, Deb?
Well, there's concerns that there's a potential leaching of the chemicals from the rubber into the soil and water, thus creating a hazard for our aquatic life and getting into the water system, the lakes, the ponds, and such. It's less effective at controlling weeds, actually, and it's rubber, so it has an odor, and is also flammable and very hard to extinguish. So if you have it close to your house and it would go on fire, are you risking having a fire hazard? So essentially, it's not as effective as other organic mulch. Again, highly flammable, hard to put out since it's once it's burning, and it's not permanent like any other organic substance. It decomposes, and then that stuff is getting into our ground and that. So it is not non-toxic.
Okay. How about landscape fabrics? Are they effective? Do they effectively control weeds long term?
It's a very temporary fix. It'll work for maybe a couple of years. And then what happens, you get dirt blowing in, leaves blowing in. Unless you're out there picking them out all the time, that's breaking down into organic matter on top of the landscape fabric. And after about 5 years or maybe less, you have a nice layer of organic matter on top of your landscape fabric. And guess what? Weed seeds are going to blow in there and they're going to germinate. And the roots grow down into the landscape fabric. And when you try to pull them out, you're yanking up landscape fabric. It was originally developed for use alongside retaining walls to put it, in a vertical application to keep soil from washing out between landscape rock or boulders or the big landscape blocks. Yep. So, and then they couldn't sell enough of it that way, so some marketing genius said, hey, let's tell people it'll keep their weeds down. And that's what they did, and everybody uses it. Now, if you want to use it for a seasonal fix, like in pathways or something, or to control weeds, and then take it up at the end of the season, great. But eventually those pores in the fabric block up with dirt and stuff, and then you're not getting a good exchange of oxygen and moisture through it. So it's just not a good thing. Just use mulch. When the mulch breaks down, you're improving your soil. So forget the landscape fabric under it.
Evergreens should be wrapped in burlap for winter protection. What do you think, Deb?
Well, It depends. In doing research, basically they said you're kind of making more work for yourself, and it may not do any good anyway. There's theories that the burlap is actually wicking moisture away from the tree, so that's drying it out. A better option would be to do a barrier or a wind screen of burlap or some substance, and then you just put stakes around your tree and put your burlap around that. If you're worried about rodents or rabbits, use hardware cloth and then put the burlap around that. And then that leaves the top open. It allows for air and light circulation and penetration to get in there. And when you do the windbreak, if you don't want to do the entire around the tree, you just do the part where you figure the most wind is on the west side or the north side to protect it. But that's, and one thing that you can do if you're worried about is to make sure that throughout the growing season, you're making sure that your trees are watered properly and throughout the growing season and up until they talk about, water them until the ground freezes, and then you're preparing that tree for our weather. So that kind of helps it as well too.
Yep, I know I give mine a good soaking before, and at least a few weeks.
Yes.
Going into a few weeks before that winter comes.
Yes.
Much as it can take. That
watering late in the fall isn't going to help. You have to.
Yeah, you have to do it. You have to do it.
keep it.
You have to just keep going at it. We live, old wives' tale here, right? You're cutting trees, pruning trees, and if you don't want it to grow, I'm going to seal that right up with something so we have no rot. The tree's not going to get damaged. Joyce, is that true?
No.
Why not?
Because when you put paint or a wound sealer on a fresh cut, all you're doing is locking in the moisture, and you're going to cause rot. Leave it alone. Just let it heal on its own. It will eventually grow over. Sometimes you'll see trees where, if you can prune off the branches that need pruning when they're smaller, that's better because you leave a smaller wound. But if you have to prune later, corrective pruning or whatever, and you have to take off some big ones, just cut just outside of the branch collar, which is kind of a little ridge on the branch, and leave it alone. There is one exception to that rule, and that is oak trees. Because of oak wilt in Minnesota and the beetle that spreads it, if you have to prune an oak tree, maybe you had some storm damage and you've got to prune something off. If you can, prune during the safe period, which is November through March, if your tree needs pruning, but you get a bad storm that comes through and you've got to do it in the summer. You can't leave it sitting there. Then, starting from April 1st through July is kind of the high risk period for the insects spreading oak wilt. So during that period, if you must prune it, then you should, immediately after you cut it, have latex paint handy there and use a latex, a water-based paint to cover it. Because those beetles that spread oak wilt can smell that fresh sap. They can be on that tree within 10 or 15 minutes. So when they say immediately, they do mean immediately make the cut and put on the latex paint. The end of July or starting August, September, October is fairly safe. And they don't really give a lot of guidance on, if you want to play it safe, I would say the closer you are to that end of June, early July period, the more likely you are that you want to slap a little latex on it. But the closer you get to that November time period, when it's totally safe, you don't have to do anything, but yeah, sealing tree wounds does not help them heal.
Okay. My plants are looking not so great. I think I should add some Epsom salts to make them look healthier. Is that true? Is that a myth?
Not really. It is. Epsom salts contain magnesium. You should only add additives to your soil after you've had a soil test to show what you are lacking in and if it can improvement. Most soil in Minnesota, except if you live in it, not in our area, but if you live where there's sandier soil, then you might need to add extra magnesium. But generally in this area, McLeod County, you don't need to. You hear about put Epsom salts when you plant your tomatoes because it will do this and prevent this and make your things. Actually, adding too much magnesium can prevent adequate calcium, which would cause the blossom end rot. So it could ultimately set you backwards.
So the
Yep.
plants can't take up the calcium
Right.
that's already in the soil
Yes.
if there's too much magnesium.
So the big thing here is
Don't do
before
it.
you put anything in your soils, have your soil tested and get some scientific results to see what your soil needs.
Anti-transparents is prevent winter burn on evergreens. Hopefully I said that word right.
Close enough.
Close it up.
And what she's talking about, and there are different ones. This one is called Wilt Stop, an anti-transparent plant protector. I have always heard no from the University of Minnesota. They say it doesn't really help, and I am guessing that's because you have to wait until the plant or the tree, whatever it is that you're wanting to protect, has gone dormant. And you need completely dormant, and you need above freezing temperatures, ideally between 40 and 50 degrees. Now, for a lot of our trees and things, and I'm thinking things like azaleas, rhododendrons, boxwoods, that they might look pretty tattered. They might be some benefit, but you have to spray. Ideal is between 40 and 50 degrees and sunny, so the sun dries it on. And you have to get the tops of the leaves and the undersides of the leaves. If you don't get all of that, it's not going to do you any good. You've just gone and spent money for something to make yourself feel good, maybe. I'm not sure, but basically it works by blocking up or clogging up the pores that plants use for transpiration. Now, again, the best thing you can do is that watering. Keep your trees watered through the summer. If we get a drought period, get out there and water them. I'm not saying you have to do it weekly, but if we haven't had rain for a couple of weeks, give those evergreens a good soaking. It seems like from what I've been reading, it works better in areas like states that are warmer zones, like 6 and above, or 6 and higher.
Yep.
I didn't think which direction I was going here. But in Minnesota, first of all, a lot of things don't go dormant till mid-November or later. So the number of days we get that are sunny and between 40 and 50, and if you have several evergreens and you've got to get the tops and the bottoms of the needle, you're going to go through a lot of this stuff. Now, if you want to use it on your winter containers, your greens, it'll probably help.
I did use it on my winter greens, so for the first time this year. But you can see a plasticky coating. Now, those are already dead, so it doesn't much matter. So I would be concerned that how does that come off in the spring, and does it?
Yeah,
affect your
they
plants?
say it wears off. The University of Minnesota says, it's not really worth the expense and the time. Just keep your trees watered.
Hydrogels, in potting mixes greatly reduce my watering needs.
There's some debate over this. In other climates, maybe it's better or not. Unfortunately, for marketing tools, it's almost hard to find potting soil these days that do not have it already added in there. There's a study it's a professor, and some interesting things. Learn with caution. Some of these products are marketed under Soil Moist or Mighty Zorb are a couple of the commercial lines on it, and it's just looks like little granules that you can mix into your soil. The problem is that one of the ingredients in this is acrylamide. And when it's in the polymerized state, so when it's in these gel forms, it's okay. But when that breaks down, which it does, that is a carcinogen. And so, or a potential carcinogen. So that's getting into our soil. And the hydrogels do break down. They're, in 2 to 5 years, they'll break down. So they're not even very long lasting. Now, if you use it in your pots, the question is, what do you do with your soil after you empty your pots in the fall? I reuse some of mine, but ultimately it's going to go in a compost. It's going to go back in your garden, so you are introducing these chemicals into your garden. So I think it would just kind of, then they're saying if you're working with this acrylamide, you should wear protective clothing. So to me, that means use with caution or be educated on what you're using, whatever. If you look hard enough, you can find soils that do not have that additive in there, but studies are showing that it's maybe not such a good, perfect solution. Better go out and water.
Now, this one we've also been asked about, and this one is also a big social media one. You might see it on Facebook, Instagram, probably even TikTok. I know I have. And you see people mix up their own concoction. Is this true or not, Joyce? Vinegar, salt, and a little dish soap mixed together is a safe herbicide alternative.
No. If I had a nickel for every time I've heard this one. Will it work? Yes, to some degree. It's a burn down chemical, and yes, they are still chemicals. So, you know, if you think using this, you're avoiding chemicals, you are not. So smaller plants, annuals, it will burn them down, and it'll look like they died really fast. And you go, wow, that's cool, they never died. And then new ones come back up, or if it's a larger one, it burns off the top and it comes back from the roots because it didn't kill the roots. There's also collateral damage to worms, toads, frogs, and soil microbes. Repeated use, because of the salt in there and the vinegar, you can actually damage the soil. And if you're using horticultural grade vinegar, which is what they originally said, I mean, it will kill any plant it touches, but that's a 20 to 40% concentration of acetic acid. And so if you're going to use that, you also need to wear chemical resistant gloves, masks, and goggles, because the acid, you're working with a strong acid, and that can cause serious acid burns to your skin and your lungs. So, you know, just put the mulch down, weed it. You're still using chemicals if you're doing this.
A lot of people drink coffee, and I save my coffee grounds. And after a while, I just mix them into my soil because I think that's healthy and good. Is that true?
No. Coffee grounds can be beneficial to the soil. The best place to put your coffee ground is in your compost pile.
Okay.
They've been known to consistently, they don't lower your pH. They don't do anything like that. But the microbes go in there, and that's the foundation for a healthy soil, is to having all of these in there and interacting with one another. And then, you know, that will improve the nutrients in your soil and give better soil. But coffee grounds do contain carbon, nitrogen, and that are in the soil already. So the best thing is, they say, to put it as an additive in your compost. And there again, coffee grounds, you don't want to add anything to your soil unless you've got a soil test done that will recommend what you should add to it. Best thing is throw your coffee grounds in the compost pile.
You know how many times we get asked that question?
Yes.
It's amazing.
Will it make it more acid?
It may
Yeah.
be more, yeah.
Because our
it'll be
pH
better.
around here can run a little high. If I put them around my hydrangeas, will
It'll
it
be
turn them
better.
blue?
Yes, yes.
No, it won't.
Okay, this is another one, and some people swear by this or not. Watering plants on sunny days burns the leaves. Joyce?
No. Water droplets do not act like a magnifying glass. Best practice, when you can, is to water in the morning, but that's because of evaporation. Usually the wind is calm then and you have less evaporation. And if you do get it on your plants, the leaves have all day to dry off, so you aren't going into the nighttime with wet, soggy leaves. And now you want to talk about burning them, if you water them with, grab the hose on a hot day, if you've ever stuck your finger in that water, it's pretty hot. Now if you shoot that on some leaves, that might burn them. So make sure you get that hot water out of the hose first. Salt in the soil can burn leaves. You remember all that salt people have been wanting to dump on everything? That can burn the leaves. So no, the water droplets themselves are not going to burn your plants.
Because remember, it does rain.
Yes,
during the
it does.
daytime, and God doesn't come out and
Blow,
Yes.
turn the fan on and then wait for the sun to come out. It's, how many times does it rain and then the sun pops out? So if that were true, everything would be browned up.
Peonies need ants to open the blooms.
I remember hearing that from my grandmother. Constantly saying, it is not true. The ants are there because they're attracted to the nectar. They actually provide, they prevent like aphids or other insects and garden bad things to come to your plants because they will eat them and get rid of them. So they're actually beneficial. If you're worried about bringing ants into your house when you cut peonies, what you can do, cut them in the morning, shake them off really well. You could dunk them in some water and shake them off really well to get your ants. But yep, that's one of those myths that's been around forever.
All right. Adding salt to asparagus, to an asparagus patch, helps control the weeds.
This one is, yes, it will kill some of the weeds, it will keep them from coming through. Is it good for your soil? No. Now asparagus is somewhat salt tolerant, so it is tolerant of that. But if you keep adding salt year after year after year, it builds up in the soil and it's going to destroy your soil structure. And it can even prevent water and nutrient absorption. It can also leach into other areas. So, if you don't like weeding your asparagus all the time, once it gets up, get some mulch down around it. Hand weed it and mulch. Or if you've got it in rows, you can use some of that landscape fabric, between the rows for the season if you want to. But yeah, no, salting it. I remember the first time someone asked me that, I kind of looked at them, I'm thinking, do I salt my asparagus? And I'm thinking, well, yeah, I like a little sprinkle on it when I cook it. And I was just kind of gobsmacked when they go, no, dumping salt all over the asparagus bed so the weeds don't grow. And I'm going, that's not a good idea. So there you have it. We hope we cleared up a few myths for you. Who knows, we may come back with some more sometime, but that's it for today.
Also, we're going to be posting some additional resources for you. There's some books we have out, and they're going to be
Listed on the...
Yep. And again, if you have any questions for the Master Gardeners, there is the link that says Ask the Master Gardener. And we are just more than happy to answer some of your questions.
All right, and I've got to give a plug in for our plant sale coming up on May 30th, and our Gardening Knowledge for Free on seed starting, one on February 23rd and another one on March 23rd. Maybe. That's one of those maybe ones. Garden Magic on April 14th,
April 14th.
at the Crow River Golf Club. You can always go to the Extension, Meeker McLeod Extension Facebook page or directly to their website to find information. So thanks for joining us today, and we'll see you next time in the garden.